Okay. Check, 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 1, 2. 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 Check, check.
Good morning, and welcome to First Unitarian Society. My name is Becky Burns, and I serve this congregation as a worship associate. Worship associates are a common custom in Unitarian congregations as well as other faiths. It's when members of our congregation help with the services every weekend. If you're interested in becoming a worship associate, be sure to talk to Kelly AJ. Today I am joined by the Reverend Kelly Asprooth-Jackson and the worship team of Linda Warren, Drew Collins, Steve Gregarious, and Daniel Carnes. The vision of FUS is growing souls, connecting with one another and embodying our UU values in our lives, our community, and our world. If you are visiting with us today, welcome. We are so glad you are with us. If you would like more information about FUS, please stop by the welcome table located in the Commons. We hope you'll be able to stay and join us for coffee hour immediately following the services, also in the Commons. For those of you connecting today virtually, we are glad you are with us as well. And we hope that you'll take a moment after the service and watch the announcements that'll be on the slides. And now I invite you to join me in a moment of silence to center ourselves and bring ourselves fully into this time as we join together once again in community.
This is where we are.
Where do we go from here?
First, we must massively assert our dignity and worth.
We must stand up amidst a system that still oppresses and develop an unassailable and majestic sense of values.
What is needed is a realization that power without love is reckless and abusive.
And that love without power is sentimental and anemic.
Power at its best is love implementing the demands of justice.
And justice, as at its best, is power correcting everything that stands against love.
And this is what we must see as we move on. And now I invite you to rise in all the ways that we do and join me in the words of aspiration for the kindling of our chalice. Deep calls unto deep, joy calls unto joy, light calls unto light. Let the kindling of this flame rekindle in us the inner light of love, of peace, of hope. And as one flame lights another, nor grows the less, we pledge ourselves to be bearers of the light, wherever we are. We invite you to take a moment now to turn and greet those around you with signs of love and peace.
Standing for the Black National Anthem. Lift Every Voice and Sing was written for and first sung by a group of young black children at a segregated school in Jacksonville, Florida, to honor Booker T. Washington. It quickly became popular, and by 1919, the NAACP had dubbed it the Negro National Anthem for so ably voicing a cry for liberation and affirmation for African American people. It is said that this was one of Martin Luther King Jr.'s favorite hymns, and Monday is Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday. So let's sing together our opening hymn, the Black National Anthem, number 149, Lift Every Voice and Sing, verses 1 and 3. Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of our new day begun, let us march on till victory is won. God of our weary years, God of our silent tears, thou who hast brought us thus far on the way, thou who hast by thy might led us into the light, keep us forever in the path we pray. Lest our feet stray from the places, our God, where we met thee. Lest our hearts, drunk with the wine of the world, we forget thee. Shadowed beneath thy hand, may we forever stand, true to our God, true to our native land.
And now it is time for our colorful, spirited annual banner parade. Each of our children's religious exploration classes has created a banner to reflect the things they've talked about, thought about, played about, and cared about during the previous months of this year's classes. From preschool through 9th grade, our children and youth are busy exploring and growing. Following the parade, their banners will be hung in the Commons area, making our beloved space even more beautiful as it is infused with the vitality of our many explorers. Please feel free and encouraged to applaud enthusiastically.
Great job, everybody. Let's rise in body and/or in spirit to sing together our hymn number 1018 in the Teal Hymnal 1018. Come and go with me.
In following the notation of a musical score, every so often the players come to a rest. The voices, or the hands on the keys, or the strings, or the feet on the pedals, all stop. It does not mean the piece is ended. It has not even paused, for the silence is a part of the music. For many of us, rest is the hardest demand of living, the most challenging necessity to actually treat as a part of life and not an interruption in it. So now, to make room for our private thoughts or for the clearing away of thoughts entire, let us spend this moment together, resting in reverent quiet. Amen. So this Monday is Martin Luther King Day, as has become an ingrained civic ritual in America. A large percentage of religious services this weekend will be focused on the Reverend Doctor, or his legacy, or the larger struggle he was a part of. And so I do want to talk about that struggle, still very much an ongoing one. The struggle for a just and equitable society. But I want to talk about one particular dimension of the work of justice, and that is the critical importance of joy. In our cultural understanding of prophethood, of people who hold fast to what is true in the face of what is wrong, in a way that demands that the world take notice, there is, commonly, some strong element of the tragic. Certainly, tragic is an appropriate word to use for a life that ended in assassination, as Martin's did. But the pattern stretches back far, far further than that, to the crucifixion in the Christian tradition, and the gospel formula of the city that stones the prophets and murders the messengers sent to her. And even those words, attributed to the teacher Jesus, allude to yet older precedents in the Jewish tradition. Moses, Judaism's archetypical prophet, lost his children and died on the threshold of the end of his 40-year quest, unable to see his community through to their longed-for destination. So many of our shared stories, both ancient and modern, see prophecy as inherently linked to suffering and ordeal. But while the reality of pain and death in any life must be acknowledged in order to tell a person's story honestly, to allow hardship and woe to define a life, again, any life, would also be dishonest. Let me turn here specifically to the life of Martin Luther King Jr. for a moment, who, in his life, knew the particular joys of being a husband, a father, a pastor, and who also enjoyed more mundane or even frivolous-seeming pursuits. There's more than one photograph in circulation, you may have seen one of them before, to document that King greatly enjoyed playing pool, that he was pretty darn good at it. He was also a great lover of jazz music, with strong opinions on the subject. His friend and colleague, the Reverend Sampson Alexander, recalled that while King was a great advocate for Miles Davis as the greatest jazz trumpeter, his overall top pick was Charlie Bird Parker. So the man enjoyed a game of skill and loved the sort of music that he loved, all very human things to delight in. It is always good to be reminded that all prophets are, first, human beings, lest we become alienated from our own moral duty to speak, to act, to move in the world prophetically. But this is more than merely humanizing color. A person's pleasures, however seemingly simple, have implications on the whole of the life that they lead. Folks in Atlanta, where Dr. King served the congregation his father had served before him, recall that Martin's occasional presence in the pool halls caused him to form relationships with a dimension of the community that might not otherwise have come into contact with a man of the cloth. Relationships that proved powerful when the time came to mobilize for collective action. And while most jazz has no lyrics, so that some folks may think of that style of music as lacking an inherent politics, there are traces of it to be found in King's speech and work. To be informed about the history of jazz music in America is to be informed about the struggle for full and fundamental humanity under the law for black folks in this country in the first half or so of the 20th century. At least one scholar of jazz music has wondered about Martin Luther King's famous "I Have a Dream" speech. In it, he repeats again and again the phrase, "Now is the time." Could this be a reference, conscious or unconscious, to Charlie Parker's landmark recording, "Now's the Time"? More often than I might like to admit to myself, I come across words from a fellow Unitarian Universalist minister that summarize a point I was hoping to make, but do it far better than I would have made it myself. So I'm going to pass one such incident along to you here from my colleague Aaron Stockwell Wiseman. He invokes three names. King, you're obviously familiar with. Howard Thurman was another great black preacher and activist, roughly a generation older than King. And James Luther Adams, a Unitarian Universalist scholar of our history and social ethics. So here are Aaron's words. When I think about the modern day prophets, I also remember that Martin Luther King Jr. loved Star Trek, that he once watched the World Series with Howard Thurman, the pictures of him swimming. I also remember the fact that Howard Thurman learned clarinet later in life, that he apparently had an extensive collection of penguin figurines, that James Luther Adams loved kung fu movies. It reminds me that there had to be joy for the prophetic words and deeds to flow. It reminds me that joy is prophetic too, that joy is a form of resistance. Remembering that joy is a form of resistance can serve as an antidote to the premise, a false premise, I believe, that the project of social justice is the province of scolds and killjoys. For what is this struggle for, if not delight? The space to live, the freedom to be fully alive and to enjoy the gifts of such life, however seemingly large or small. Whether I am laboring in defense of my own rights or for the liberation of others, the goal is that more human beings should be able to enjoy themselves more fully in our little time upon this earth. The contemporary activist Adrienne Marie Brown talks about this as pleasure activism. She writes, "Pleasure reminds us to enjoy being alive and on purpose. Pleasure, embodied, connected pleasure, is one of the ways we know when we are free, that we are always free, that we always have the power to co-create the world. Pleasure helps us move through the times that are unfair, through grief and loneliness, through the terror of genocide, or days when the demands are just overwhelming. Pleasure heals the places where our hearts and spirit get wounded. Pleasure reminds us that even in the dark, we are alive. Pleasure is a medicine for the suffering that is absolutely promised in life. Pleasure is the point. Feeling good is not frivolous. It is freedom. We live in a society that commodifies happiness, that pressures us towards an impossible standard of outward satisfaction in order to sell us things with the suggestion that they will make us as deliriously happy as other people appear to be in advertisement and social media. So I need to affirm to you here that pleasure activism and joy as resistance does not mean or require feeling giddy or upbeat all the time. Our own precious reservoirs of gladness can often be of most value to us when we are really down in it, when we are waylaid by life's cruelty. Renewing our connection to the joyful parts of our own existence can be the stuff that helps us through. For my part, when I need more strength than I feel I have, it is the people to whom I am closest that I think of. When I wrestle with despair at the state of the world or my place in it, when I wake in the night and cannot find sleep again, or when sleep will not come to begin with, I think of the people who love me. I call them to mind because it is nourishing and reassuring to be loved, of course, but also because it is so rare and so precious in this life to have the opportunity to love deeply and unreservedly. I find solace and comfort in reminding myself of the people who are mine to love. For me, that includes my parents, my siblings, my children. Whatever else is wrong with the world, that much of it is right for me. But when I need courage to face something hard, to confront something wrong, I think of my teachers, the ones who have passed on from life. I picture them behind me. Sometimes I imagine the weight of one of their hands on my shoulder. Two I think of often are Helena Chapin, who was one of my childhood ministers, and Ibrahim Farajage, who was one of my professors in seminary. I find encouragement by calling to mind their faces, but also by remembering the particularities of their presences. Helena was one of the first vegans I ever knew. She said once that being a minister, people were all the time offering her food, and that one of the incidental benefits of holding to a diet without meat or dairy or other animal products was to provide an at least semi-intelligible excuse for not eating it all. When she said that, I had only the vaguest hope that I might one day become a minister myself, and absolutely no inclination at that point that I would one day become a vegan as well. Now, I am not generally one for strong sense, but my teacher, Ibrahim, had a great appreciation for the delights of all the senses, including smell. Once, at a chapel service he was leading, he anointed each of our hands with rose water as we entered the room. A taste, he said, of the sweetness we will share together in paradise. Remembering that scent of rose water reminds me also of the example of moral courage he set for me. It makes me stronger to face the things that I have to face. The small and unique details of each and every human life offer so much to wonder at and to exult in. It is one of the great joys I take in living to be able to carry those details with me in my memories of those to whom I owe so much. And one of the hopes of my life is that on some future day after my breath has gone out of the world, someone might remember one of my mannerisms or foibles and take courage and press on. In her book of explorations and contemplations from the woods around her home, Pilgrim at Tinker Creek, the author Annie Dillard writes, "The world is fairly studded and strewn with pennies cast broadside from a generous hand. But, and this is the point, who gets excited about a mere penny? But if you cultivate a healthy poverty and simplicity, so that finding a penny will literally make your day, then, since the world is in fact planted in pennies, you have with your poverty bought a lifetime of days. It is that simple." There are opportunities for delight to be found in every hour of every day of every life. And sometimes these opportunities burst into our hearts uncontrollably, and joy, unlooked for, seizes us blessedly. But the capacity to enjoy the world is also something we can cultivate for ourselves. And so we will get more pleasure out of life if we do the work to seek out and open ourselves up to it. This may seem contradictory. Wasn't pleasure supposed to be easy? You're telling me to put in effort now? But it is of the same order as the crucial truth that freedom is grounded in and maintained by our relationships to others. As Martin Luther King so famously said, we are caught up in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. I can never be what I ought to be until you are what you ought to be. And you can never be what you ought to be until I am what I ought to be. So that cultivating joy within ourselves is actually part of fulfilling our obligations towards others. Dorothy Day, the founder of the Catholic worker movement, often repeated a phrase she gleaned from the Victorian-era British polymath John Ruskin: the duty of delight. This was eventually used as the title for a collection of excerpts from her diaries. In one of the passages from that collection, she wrote about entirely revising her message to the readers of her activist newspaper. The other day, when writing my article in Appeal, I threw away my article telling of all our troubles and thought, this is not what our readers want. To be tortured with tales of broken families, men beating their wives and children, etc. I will write happily of June and its beauties. Of course, if you do this, you get a double share of complaints from all around you who try to make you see how bad everything is. Still, you cannot help but help others by your own repose and joy if you try to maintain it. Dorothy's words hint at something critical here, a distinction between ignoring or dismissing the woes of the world and persisting in a search for joy, despite and even because of a full awareness of the earth's injustice. The poet Jack Gilbert pressed home the importance of making such space for joy when he wrote, "If we deny our happiness, resist our satisfaction, we lessen the importance of their deprivation. We must risk delight, not enjoyment. We must have the stubbornness to accept our gladness in the ruthless furnace of this world. To make injustice the only measure of our attention is to praise the devil." Joy and justice are bound together. The former is not merely a necessary means to sustain the work of the latter. It is a fundamental component of that work. In a lovely bit of serendipity, it just so happens that in 1 week, on the evening of Saturday, the 20th, our racial justice and climate action ministry teams are hosting an event here at FUS that perfectly encapsulates this. It will be a night of social justice themed board games, open to families and everyone, with food and fellowship and the opportunity to enjoy each other. If the time works for you, I hope you'll consider it. Details and how to RSVP may be found in the red floors. Now, there is an idea that exists in several different strands of mystical human religion, that the purpose of life and the world is joy. Joy to be shared between humanity and the divine, each exulting in the interplay with the other. I'm most familiar with this from the Hindu perspective, particularly the Vaishnava branch, where the motivating purpose of creation can be summarized as a series of games undertaken with a loving spirit, being played between Krishna, the divine, and humankind. The contemporary American poet, Alfred K. Lamott, puts his own spin on this theme, and so I'm going to leave you with some of his poem. Everybody seems to have conversations with God these days, so I had one too. God, I asked, I only have one question. Why did you create all this? I don't remember, God said. Does it matter? But Lord, I replied, philosophers search for meaning. Is there no reason in your work? None at all, said the Creator. I am just in love. What more do lovers need? I demanded an explanation. Scriptures declare that you spoke the word. Creation was born from chaos at your command. Doesn't your word mean anything? God thought about this a moment and replied, no, I was just humming. Outraged and incredulous, I cried. All this is just a song. And God said, yes, just a melody for my beloved.
I invite you now into this time of giving and receiving, where we give freely and generously to this offering which sustains and strengthens our community here, and also our outreach offering recipient, who this week is the King Coalition of Madison and Dane County. Established in the fall of 1985, the King Coalition is a community group that plans the official City of Madison and Dane County observances of Martin Luther King Jr. holiday. FUS is a proud partner in this coalition. There are multiple ways to share your gifts this morning. Baskets are now being passed here in the auditorium for cash or checks. Or as you see on the screen, that you can donate directly from our website, fusmadison.org. You will see our text to give information there as well. We thank you for your generosity and your faith in this life we create together.
Each week we gather, carrying in our hearts the joys and the losses of our days. We hold our own pain and celebration with those of the ones we love. We share these here, knowing they are held gently in care, in support, and in love. We light a candle of grief and memory on behalf of Karen, Amy, Ann, and Sarah for their mother, Sandy Oberhauser, who passed away peacefully this week, with them at her side. Sandy loved this congregation dearly, lived a long and generous life, and will be deeply missed by family and friends. A celebration of her life is now being planned for next month. Final details will be shared soon. We light a candle of ongoing lament for the violence which plagues our world. Fervently we yearn for peace here at home and around the globe. And we light a candle for all those joys and sorrows, hopes and dreams that remain unspoken in the silent sanctuaries of our hearts. I invite you now to turn with me both inward and outward as we enter together into an attitude of meditation and of prayer with these words of blessing from John O'Donohue. On the day when the weight deadens on your shoulders and you stumble, may the clay dance to balance you. And when your eyes freeze behind the gray window and the ghost of loss gets into you, may a flock of colors, indigo, red, green, and azure blue, come to awaken in you a meadow of delight. When the canvas frays in the currach of thought and a stain of ocean blackens beneath you, may there come across the waters a path of yellow moonlight to bring you safely home. May the nourishment of the earth be yours. May the clarity of light be yours. May the fluency of the ocean be yours. May the protection of the ancestors be yours. And so may a slow wind work these words of love around you, an invisible cloak to mind your life. Amen.
About 100 years ago, European hymns, the blues, jazz, and revivalist songs swirled together to become black gospel music. Thomas Dorsey is often called the father of gospel music because he actively and vigorously campaigned for its adoption into black churches and perhaps even perfected the genre as a musician himself. One historian said, "Gospel music combined the good news of the gospel with the bad news of the blues." Dorsey wrote Precious Lord in response to his inconsolable bereavement at the death of his wife in childbirth and his infant son in August 1932. It was Martin Luther King Jr.'s favorite song, and he often invited gospel singer Mahalia Jackson to sing it at civil rights rallies to inspire crowds. At his request, she would sing it at his funeral. King's last words before his assassination was a request for musician Ben Branch to play it at a service they were due to attend that night. His exact last words were, "Ben, make sure you play Take My Hand, Precious Lord, in the meeting tonight. Play it real pretty." Please rise in body and or in spirit to sing together our closing hymn, number 199. Precious Lord, take my hand. Precious Lord, take my hand, lead me on, let me stand. I am tired, I am weak, I long
The question is not whether we will be extremists, but what kind of extremists we will be. Will we be extremists for hate or for love? Will we be extremists for the preservation of injustice or the extension of justice? Blessed be. Go in peace. And please be at rest for the postlude.
All right, good. 2 down, 1 to go.